Good morning, everybody. I just want to give you a brief overview of Chapter 10 and some of the resources that we have available for you in the Canvas site. This PowerPoint slide has certain topics that I wanted to cover in this presentation. First of all, I want to sort of give you the topics and the learning objectives for the chapter, which you already know about since you already have read the chapter. I'm also going to go back and show you the module very quickly, where the learning notes or the lesson notes are going to be in the module, as well as some of the videos and answer keys. And again, this is actually a review for most of you, but there will be a few that I have not gone through this yet. Notice that we're in the middle of the coverage for Chapter 10. You've already covered the reading, so you are very familiar with all these topics. Now we have to apply them through either studying via the module or via MyLab, or even as you're taking the actual homework, deliverable homework exercises in MyLab. The last part of it will be to give you a few extra notes for each of the learning objectives. And again, this is actually sort of a duplicate of what you will see in the lecture notes inside of the module, but I wanted to give you some additional ways of looking at the same thing. It's optional, obviously. Do note that I'm saying that most of your time should be spent on these three learning objectives, LO1 through LO3 and then LO7. So review your book and see which those happen to be. Here they are, the learning objectives that we're going to be covering in this lesson. First, you're going to be looking at the life cycle of a fixed asset, also called a plant asset. We're going to be doing LO1, which means that you're going to be accounting for the purchase of an asset. You're going to be measuring it, either as an initial purchase, which is most of the time that's going to be the one that you're going to be focusing on. At times you buy two or more different assets with one single purchase. So how do you deal with the allocation of that cost across all the assets that you just purchased? And then also there will be some expenditures that happen for a specific prior purchase of an asset. So how do you deal with those subsequent purchases, subsequent expenditures beyond the initial purchase? So that's going to be either a revenue or a capital expenditure, and there will be some notes on that. Once you learn how to do the purchase, then you have to deal with the depreciation. So as you use the asset, how do you depreciate the asset? How do you reflect the usage of the asset? That's called depreciation. Three methods that we cover in this class: straight line, double declining balance, and units of production. And finally, at the end of the life cycle of the asset, you have to dispose of it. So there were three ways to dispose it. It will be either just discarding the asset completely, meaning throwing away. You sell it, meaning that you actually get something in return, or you trade it for some other asset, and there will be different ways of doing that as well. There are other topics in the chapter, LO4 and LO5. I think I have those two backwards right there. Those deal with natural resources, such as companies that deal with lumber from forests or minerals from mining and things like that. So that will be LO4. You will notice that it's basically similar in terms of how you approach the purchase, the usage, depreciation, and that this is the disposal as well. Intangibles are such things as that have some value, but they don't have physical substance, and so it's similar to the plant asset, where you actually purchase it, even though it doesn't have a physical substance. It still has some value that you're going to be using over a certain life, and so you're going to actually book it as an asset. And then as you use the benefit, then you're going to be amortizing it. So in this area, in the case of plant assets, when you use the asset, we call that depreciation. when you use when you do reflect the usage of the intangible, we call that amortization, and the same thing in terms of natural resources, we call that depletion, but they're all the same thing. And there'll be other topics that you want to get into, but we're not going to really cover that heavily, so you can read that on your own. The part about business performance, which will be AL06. There's the appendix here that talks about commercial substance and no commercial substance. That relates back to trading. So keep that in mind. That's how those two relate. Going back to here, again, let me just quickly go to the module. If I click on that, it will get me back to the same modules in our class. So I just can go directly here, and notice that I'm going to be closing this week 0. So I'm going to go now to 1 and 2. And if you're going to access the notes, obviously you go into the lecture notes. These are more formal. I mean, it has more substance in here, more detail. So you can go there and view the whole thing on the screen. Close this up if you want. And again, you can actually then access these notes. Now, what I wanted to focus on now is that you could actually go through each of these learning objectives by viewing the videos that come with the book. They actually come from my lab. So I place them here. If you have my lab open in a different tab within the same browser, you're able to then just click on this and view the videos that go along with each of those learning objectives. So I would highly recommend that you do that.
It's time to start another chapter in your account.
So they're very useful. I have other sections here that deal with the same topics. So you can actually, again, go ahead and view these along with my little handouts. I go back to the module, and in part of the module, as you see, let me go back here. I assign certain things in the class calendar. So I'm going to go there now and show you what that looks like, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So I go to the class calendar, and then I will see, hopefully at some point soon, that. And so as you see here, I've assigned these items for the homework. These are static, printed on your textbook, in your textbook. And so, for example, if you're looking at 1b-ch10-17, that one you will get also in my lab in the actual deliverable that you're going to have to actually solve and submit. Now, the one here in the textbook is obviously based on certain numbers. The ones in my lab is the same problem but with different numbers. So it's a similar to, not exactly the same thing. But to learn to solve that problem, you can do it in many ways. So I'm going to go back to the module, and you can go to the lecture notes to learn about the topic. But you can also go to the homework keys. You need the homework keys. You can see here is chapter 10, 17 right there. Click on that, and I have placed in there either a worksheet or some other resources to explain the answer. So here is the answer to the problem E1017 in the back of your chapter. After you read it, you will be able to see the actual given information there. Come here and see how it is solved. At times I add a few of my notes to these keys, but they should be enough for you to learn how to solve the problem. If that is not enough, you can always, when you go and actually take the homework in here, I'll do that right now. This is what you will be doing this week. You can go to the actual homework inside of the My Lab in here. See, here's 1017, similar to. Open that up, and you'll notice that you've got, here's the actual problem. And if you know how to solve it at this point, that you're fine, you just do it. If not, you have another 2 very good resources to actually learn how to solve this. They're excellent. Go through these. So you either use the modules, use the answer keys, and or use the resources here in my lab to solve these problems. So let me go back to my presentation now. Let's see if I can find it right there. And so that takes care of that. Let's see, let's move on. Here's some other chapter highlights that I wanted to point out. This is for LO2. Did I skip LO1 already? No, here's LO1. Yeah. I just listed some highlights in the chapter with some additional links to some handouts that you can actually look at if you wish. And then you go on to LO3 and LO7 right here. Again, here, if I click on this, it takes me up to another set of notes that I've done before for this chapter. So you may find this useful. And then you've got at the end some more notes for the other lecture learning objectives. So I'm hoping that this actually gives you a nice sort of rundown of all the material for chapter 10. Again, this chapter now you're halfway through it, but now you're going to have to deal with the problem solving part, which takes more time. Hopefully it will be this will be useful. Again, use the discussion boards for any kind of question you might have on the homework. Have fun.